This begins with tamales. A lady makes these wonderful tamales, and she sells them piping hot on Sunday mornings out of this little storefront grocery. We buy a few shortly after they're delivered at 9 o'clock because they do sell out, and we go to a small nearby park where we eat the tamales sitting beside this little pond stocked with bright orange carp, 2 turtles, and some frogs who are mostly silent and invisible, but every once in a while sound off eruptuously and let you know they are there. One morning I noticed a metal post with a sign on it near the pond. Up beside the sign there was a spider's web, shining silver in the morning sun, and going from the sign to a tree was one thread stretched tight, and that single thread was 12 to 15 feet long. I said, "How the hell did that spider get that thread from the sign to the tree?" The answer is that it used the wind or even heat convection currents from the ground. It spins out the thread from liquid silk it makes and lets the thread drift in the air, which is called kiting or ballooning, until it strikes something and attaches by winding around or perhaps a static electrical charge. The thread is very light and very strong, with a tensile strength equal to that of some steel. The spider will walk across the thread and then will walk back exactly half the distance and spin a thread to the ground. After securing that, the spider then climbs up to the sign and spins out its web from 7 silk-producing glands in its abdomen. The first long thread is called the bridge thread, or the bridge line. The next is a drag line, and then the frame to the web. After that, the spokes, which are dotted with a sticky substance to trap the prey. If the initial bridge line does not attach to anything, the spider will eat it for the protein and try again. I am aware of certain creatures as builders of complex structures: ants, bees, beaver, and the spider is definitely in that category. The fact that it creates its own profoundly useful building material is incredible, as is the construction itself. The resulting web is a marvelous thing to which you must add the function which allows the spider to eat and survive. I was reading an essay by a man named Loren Eiseley. He was writing about a cottonwood tree he and his father planted when he was young, his father telling him as they did so about the pleasure he would derive from growing up with that tree. Instead, the family moved away and he lost track of the tree. But he remembered the tree, and one day, years later, he went back to that place, mostly to see the tree. And it was gone. It wasn't there, ominous in its absence. And he thought about all the years it had grown and been with him, just as his father had said, in his imagination. And about this he wrote, "It was obvious it was attached by a thread to a thing that had never been there, or certainly not for long. Something that had to be held in the air or sustained in the mind because it was part of my orientation in the universe, and I could not survive without it. There was more than an animal's attachment to a place. There was something else, the attachment of the spirit to a grouping of events in time. It was part of our mortality." When I read about Eiseley's thread, his attachment, I thought of the spider and its bridge line. And now, when we go to that park, the little park near the tiny grocery, and I sit by the small pond, listening to the trickle of the waterfall, watching the fish and turtles, munching on the delicious warm tamales, some are red and some are green, and the spiciness seems to vary from batch to batch, but not the quality. I think of myself, forming attachments all the time that sustain me, in a way, with invisible threads of remarkable power.